Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you some of the cameras that I work with. Don't feel intimidated because I shoot with many different types of cameras, different types of brands, from Canon to Sony to Nikon and the good old-fashioned iPhone. So all of these cameras do hold their use, and at a later date I'll go over why I use all the different brands and types of cameras. But today I'm really going to go over the simplicity part of photography, which is how the hell do you take a picture? Like, how do you take a really good picture? And we're going to start something very basic, which is you don't have to have any of this fancy, expensive equipment if you're not sure how you are seeing the world. In fact, an iPhone or an Android is a perfect way of just familiarizing yourself with framing and composition. So out of all of this stuff, right, no matter technique or technical things, like, you have to learn how to frame your image within your camera. So I always think the iPhone is really the best way to start. So as you can see with the iPhone, it has a nice grid there, right? So that grid is a compositional rule, which is called a rule of thirds, which by the way, I hate rules. So I'm going to teach you the rules because then you're going to learn how to break the rules. So when it comes down to photographing, and I'm going to give you guys some tips to help you build your compositional skill. It's very hard because you don't want to go out and look at the world and say, I need a rule of thirds, I need a triangle, I need a diagonal, right? That's not kind of how you approach the world and looking in how it's going to fit within that compositional rule. So this is not going to be intimidating. Well, I hope not. It's going to be intimidating. It's going to be very basic and very simple for you to grasp the concept. To keep it light today, we're going to go over I think the 4 most common rules when it comes to photography and composition. Now, as I mentioned before, I don't like rules. I like to break the rules. So it's important, though, to learn the rules first. So what are the rules of photography? Because there are many rules of photography, but we're talking about composition only. So we have the rule of thirds, we have golden triangle, we have center composition, and we have golden spiral. Those are really the 4 most important rules that I think can help you take better photos. So the first is rules of thirds. What is rule of thirds, and why is that the most common? Well, rule of thirds is pretty much the most easiest for people to kind of understand. And here I'm going to show you a photo. Bloop. And this is a picture of a woman you could see standing on the right-hand side where she's going through the lines. You can see where the lines are. And so most of the composition is based on her, right? So you know that is the focus point. So that would be a good example of why that is a rule of thirds. An important part of rule of thirds to keep in mind is that it is divided into 3s, right? So you have 1, 2, 3. You can see right there, and you have 1, 2, 3. You can see right there. So that's why it's called the rule of thirds. And you can see how in the photograph that the woman, the portrait of this woman, she is standing on the right-hand side, right? And she's occupying those 3 quadrants. It's also important to place the subject on one of those intersection points in order for it to make it the rule of thirds composition. Before I get on to my next rule, which is rule number 2, it's important to know, like, why are we doing these rules? It's because your job as a photographer, right, is to help the viewer become engaged with your photograph. So by having these compositional rules, it helps the viewer understand where they should be looking, and it helps the viewer understand what is it that you're trying to tell them. What's the story? What's the narrative? You know, what I want to take away with this photograph. Therefore, we have to have these rules in order for the composition to make sense. All right, so the next rule is golden triangle. So what is golden triangle? Boop, you can see right there. Here's a photograph. Well, what makes this rule a golden triangle? Well, you have 2 points of interest, right? So you have the woman up on top. You have her dog sitting in the stroller. I think it's a stroller, I don't know what it is. On the bottom, right, it's creating a juxtaposition between those 2. So there is some sort of dynamic tension between those 2. Thus, it makes it a golden triangle. All right, so golden spiral. What makes something a golden spiral? Well, this is the most challenging out of all the compositional rules to achieve, but when you do achieve it, it's really exciting. Now, when you create a golden spiral composition, it's not like you're going out in the world and saying, let me go find a golden spiral. And also, there's a misconception about a golden spiral is that you have to photograph stairs in order to achieve a golden spiral composition technique, and that's not the case at all. There is a really well-known photographer that I love. His name is Henry Cartier-Bresson. He's no longer alive, but take a look at his work. We're going to show you a picture right here that I like. And he's the classic, I think, photographer that could really execute the golden spiral extremely, extremely well. So here are my two favorite photos that I like of his work. And now on to my photograph, which is of a dog in a cart at a dog show. So what makes this image a golden spiral, right? There's no stairs, there's nothing circular here. It's really how your eye follows along in that composition. So you can see that I'm really starting from the upper left-hand corner of this image and I'm going around, right? My eye line goes around and then I'm focusing in on that center of the dog. So how I created that is really framing my subject, which is the dog, between two flags. So it's really the direction of how you're coming in from the frame and then going out of the frame in order to make a golden spiral composition. All right, so we have center composition. So this is the last compositional rule that I'm going to talk about. Again, there are quite a few, but I feel like these are the most influential in my work. So with center composition, you can see here with this image, I have two people dancing. They are aligned in the center of the frame, but also there's a sense of symmetry in this photograph. Not symmetry where they have to be exactly alike, but symmetry in terms of balance. So it's centered, there's symmetry, and there's balance to the image. And there's a feeling of motion in the photograph, even if it's being centered, right? So in terms of composition, I also think that this might be an easier composition for most people because what people tend to do is they tend to look in the center of the frame and not really keep in mind what's going on in the corners of the frame. So it's another challenge for you guys to do is to not just look on the inside center, but also kind of see what's going on the outside. That's one of my favorite things when I photograph is I love like hands coming in, a foot coming in, a side of a face. Like the more chaos it is around the sides of the frame, I think the better it is for me personally. But this is a nice, simple, clean photograph. Now, what I want you all to do is to go out and shoot based on these 4 basic compositional rules. And what you can do is when you take these photographs, go on Instagram, tag me at Seymore Pictures, and then in the description box below is my email address. Shout me out an email, send me some photos. In the next few episodes, I would love to talk about some of the photographs that you guys are submitting to me. Have a great day. Oh, one last thing. It is COVID out there, so be safe. Make sure you mask up, right? Make sure that you take your hand sanitizers and... Oh, yes, I forgot one last thing. You have to subscribe. Subscribe to my channel and click the bell so that you get notifications when I have a new episode. Peace.